Hello guys, and welcome back to the 15th episode of the Online Trainer Show. I'm your host Jack Gadd, and today I'm joined by pro natural bodybuilder, founder of Team 3DMJ, which is undoubtedly one of the best natural bodybuilding contest prep services out there. I'm joined by Alberto Nunez, who is obviously one of the founding members. He's been around in the industry for a fair few years now, so you're going to be able to take away tons from this podcast. As always, I learned a lot, and I'm confident that you guys listening will as well. So make sure to go check out all of Alberto's links that are in the links to this podcast. And also, if you want to go and check out our free Facebook group called the Online Trainer Society, we post in there regular. We also have a free ebook in there as well, so you can grab that by joining the group. So hope you enjoy the podcast, and we will see you in the next one. Right guys, welcome back to the Online Trainer Show. So in today's episode, which is episode 15 of the podcast, we have on Alberto Nunez. And for anyone that doesn't know, Alberto Nunez is a pro natural bodybuilder, one of the original founders of Team 3DMJ, which is undoubtedly probably the most recognized natural bodybuilding prep service and information service out there at the minute. So we're honoured to have you on today, Alberto. How are you doing? How's your day going?
Oh, fantastic, man. It's Friday. If I get my work done, my online coaching work done at a reasonable time, I get to go out and have some fun later today. So That's the goal today, man, to crush it.
Yeah.
So that, it never works out that way, though.
You got tons of programming to do today, have you?
Yeah, actually, Friday is my programming day. It's my day where minimal client interaction and more than anything, just me and the Excel sheets.
Yeah.
So
head buried in Excel spreadsheets for hours and hours and hours.
Yeah, I love that part, though. That's probably my favorite part, is just me and some Excel and getting lost in that. And then way too much time has gone by, but yeah, that's probably a good sign.
Cool, awesome. So let's kick off and let's just tell the listeners a little bit about yourself, about kind of your journey to where you are obviously today, like in regards to the 3DMJ, getting into coaching, like just a little bit about the journey itself so far.
All right. So I guess to start off is like how did we get into this world? It's back in 1999. And prior to this athletic endeavor, I'd done every sport I could. And like my parents they were very pro academia, so they didn't necessarily understand why sports were important. So I would like sign myself up for things without them knowing, and that's how I did it. But then there was this like lifting weight thing that it seemed like all young men were into.
Yeah.
I didn't understand like the want and drive to be muscular, to be honest. Like I thought I looked fine. I was skinny. People tell me I'm way too thin, but I didn't really see it. But got into the gym simply because I wanted to hang out with a friend who he wanted to get into the gym. So and it was like, it's like love at first rep. I had never felt anything that felt so appropriate.
Yeah. And
I was good at it, but relative to my other sports, I wasn't nearly as good. Whereas like the other ones, I'd just show up and I'd do my thing. Whereas like with this one, I'd see it's like, okay, shoot, I missed 2 days last week, and that's why I'm kind of sucking today.
Yeah.
So I enjoyed the feedback, the fact that like to a certain extent, what I put into it is what I got. And it just ended up becoming like basically like my life. Like I couldn't get enough of it like from that point forward. And then finally, I think. Yeah, there was 1 year where stress fractured my foot, just wouldn't heal.
Yeah. So
track was over. So it's just full-time this. And then it really took off because I needed a competitive direction. Just got in too deep. And by the time it was 2007, I found myself on the stage for the first time. My first show, it was actually Eric Helms' first show. It was one of my colleagues at 3D Muscle Journey. It was his first show, first time we had met. We had been talking online through bodybuilding.com forums up until that point. And I guess you could say that was the instant. Like we had no idea all this was going to take place after that. Just, I thought I knew another fellow weirdo that was at relatively close distance to me. I was like, that was cool enough. But ended up making a lifelong friend out of that, business partner. And eventually 3D Muscle Journey started in 2009. We ran into Jeff Alberts a few years later, and then Brad Loomis the year before, and they didn't really understand, like, hold up, because we all had different things that we offered, and we're like, you know what, if we combine our powers, we can make this place, this bodybuilding world, a better place. But it was so abstract because no one was really doing that. We had Lane Norton and Dr. Joe, and then like after that, like the whole idea of being an online like bodybuilding consultant, just way out there. But here we are, man. It's been nearly a decade. And I like to joke around that, but we really are this good, though. Like that if for some reason, like we found some alien life form out there and they challenged us to a bodybuilding competition for the sake of, the universe, that, the president would call 3D Muscle Journey and be like, we need you guys. So yeah, we work with drug-free bodybuilders, drug-free strength athletes, which, man, so much more harder when they're drug-free, right? Because you have to get the stuff right. So yeah, a decade into this, and now online coaching isn't a weird thing anymore.
No, it's probably becoming more common than being a PT in the gym.
Yeah, that's where PTs want to end up eventually. Quite often is what you will hear. Yeah.
So just backtrack a little bit about obviously finding 3DMJ. Like, how did you sort of, obviously with Eric, sort of say, let's do this? Was it just you were both coaching clients at the time and you sort of just merged together, or were you not coaching at all before kind of finding the 3DMJ?
Well, I guess like in hindsight, I was always coaching a little bit in some ways. Like at least within like my own gym, I personally like built up a reputation for knowing a little bit more than the average person. So, and to me, it was always like fun to just like write something out, give it to a person, and if they adhered at that point, that's how it was. Sometimes they would, sometimes they wouldn't. To see that manifest itself into something, so I got a kick out of that. I had a bunch of the homies at the gyms, like on programs. Eric was a personal trainer. Jeff was not. Jeff he worked at an auto plant at the time, but he had a crap ton of experience. And then Brad, medical background, and then also he was a personal trainer. So we all were actively just learners, and I think that's super important if you eventually want to teach others how to do it right. But no, we Eric was the closest thing to it. Brad owned a gym, but he wasn't a full-time PT. Eric was a full-time PT, and I was just a gym rat that just couldn't get enough of this stuff.
And then it kind of just formed from there. It was just like, let's just do this, and obviously take it where it needs to. So it was definitely Eric and I with the vision, because like the two old men were like, what, like how? Okay, we'll humor it, I guess. But again, the biggest thing is we got so fortunate. We ran into a collection of people who were good people. Often, friendships in business, it's hard to make those things mesh. Sure.
But we have, and like here we are a decade in, and I think we're stronger than ever, both as just at a personal level, and then also as a company. So we got so fortunate. Like there's no other way of putting it.
Just like a little bit about obviously like coaches perhaps forming together. Like, do you think other coaches should look to join forces at some point if they're like, let's just say you've got two coaches that are both kind of killing it? Do you think merging together would perhaps create this stronger profile, like obviously with 3DMJ? Because I don't see that often. Obviously with 3DMJ, like you guys have done that, but I don't see many coaches who are obviously in the top level game who then merge with others.
I think, when you have a team, you could always do a little bit more. And
sure.
Everyone kind of brings their own thing to the squad. So ideally, like I think that's probably the best way of doing anything. However, it's hard to find people who like fit the criteria of what you need, that you connect with, and that you guys at the end have a very, very like similar mission statement. So that's why, I mean, I'm like, wow, that actually happened when I really stop and think about it. But ideally, I think that's the best way. I mean, and now we have a team. Like we brought on Andrea, who she definitely helps athletes out as well, but she specializes in bringing us to that new era of like marketing and giving us a smoother way of dispensing information.
Yeah.
So she's been ideal with that. Like she's like none of us had that skill set. And then we also have a registered dietitian on staff.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're going to hire a few more positions really soon here. So
Yeah.
I think that should be the natural evolution of any company, is to eventually, hey, scout for talent, bring in the right people. You're only going to get better.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's awesome to hear that, because I think, like you said, it's the natural kind of evolution of once you've kind of got yourself established, then to start taking more people on to kind of help you and grow a team that fits with your values. So yeah, that's cool. So obviously you've been coaching now for obviously well over 10 years, so you know a thing or two about building relationships with clients. Like, what's the main thing you do to really kind of I guess mold that relationship from the get-go? Because that's one thing I think a lot of coaches listening to this will want to know from you, because obviously you've been coaching for such a long time now that you're obviously very good at it.
Well, I think a huge error when it comes to the interaction, or common error that I see, is that coaches know what they know, and they kind of assume that that's enough, and that the client's going to come to them, and that the client's going to basically mold themselves to whatever the coach is. Like I'm sure you see this as like you scan through, say, the IGs, and like you're like, this coach, this is so the way he is. This is this guy, this is so the way he is. This guy's this guy's that. When I think it should be the other way around. I think one thing that a good coach does is you're able to, yes, you have your principles and you know how stuff works, but how you relay them over to a person, how you create an environment where you can do all those things. Well, it's up to the coach to basically, make themselves a little bit more like the athlete instead of the other way around.
Yeah.
So that's one thing that I definitely take into consideration, as I go through just the athletes that I've talked to briefly this morning, is that I talk to every one of them very differently, because they're different people, different backgrounds, different cultures, different ages, different perspectives, and different reasons for doing all this. So that's how I go about communicating with them. And I think that's those soft skills. I mean, that's one of the most important things that you can develop, as especially an online coach, when you're not there face to face most of the time.
Yeah, so really kind of like adapting to each person individually based on kind of what you feel like they're going to respond to best and everything.
Yeah.
Would you say you do anything specifically to kind of build like long-term relationships, like with clients who want to stay with you for more than like, say, just a contest prep period, like for kind of like years and years as such?
No, it's if you take care of what I previously mentioned, it just kind of organically forms. And I've like, sometimes athletes, I'm like, you're giving me way too much praise for whatever sort of interaction we do have. But I stop and think about like the impact that coaches have had in like my own life.
Yeah.
And it's like you're like a mentor, and especially when it comes to like this sport that kind of leaks into other parts of your life. As you help guide them through that and make everything kind of work and flow together. I can see why at the end they're like, hey, I'm really grateful for what you've done. You've changed my life, because yes, it's just body recomp or strength gains that we're after, but at the same time, because it conflicts with so many of the other things we do, you impact them in ways outside of just their training and the results.
I agree massively. Yeah, you have a massive impact on their other life as well, of just their gym life as well. So yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah. Have you ever had a coach that was been kind of like, done that for you?
Yeah. My coach that I first ever sort of came on board with massively impacted my life in terms of what I do now, actually, because before I was getting coached, I wasn't actually coaching people online, and then sort of 3 years after I first went with this coach, I'm now helping others. So yeah, he had a huge impact on my life when I think about it now. That's gives me a little bit of realization actually. So yeah.
Yeah, and I'm sure in hindsight now you can kind of look back at some of the things that he did for you, and it's
Yeah.
like, oh, that was it's pretty gnarly of him, right?
Yeah, So let's talk about clients and possibly being a little bit unmotivated. So how do you deal with clients who potentially feel unmotivated or not as motivated as they were at the start? Like they might go through a phase where things aren't going well. Maybe like home life might be getting in the way. Like how would you kind of deal with that kind of situation as a coach? Because I'm sure there's many coaches listening to this that do have that come up. They may be stuck on what to do.
Yeah, that's less likely to happen or affect you if you're doing this for the right reasons, you know. So yeah, I recall that my focus really shifted when or how I approached this really changed when it went from training so that I can accessorize my body with these muscles to when it went hey, this is an athletic endeavor, and I'm here for the challenge and to come out on top. Two very different perspectives, two very different reasons for doing it, and I think the latter was the reason I was going to the gym and sacrificing what I needed to, or at least it feels like that sometimes, right? Yeah. It was a lot easier to stick to it. So one thing you will get is you get better, and as a coach, and you build up a reputation for doing good work, you'll have more people come to you that kind of are doing it for, I guess I'll say, the right reasons. Yeah. Right. So that in itself, that'll help you immensely, so you don't have to deal with that as frequently. But I would say that regardless, even if you have those athletes that are their reasons are more internal, you're still going to run into those droughts where it's like, you know what, I'm not feeling this right now. And I think just being okay with that is the huge part. It's just being okay with that, and it's like, hey, when you're prepping and you're hungry, it's like, yeah, you wanna eat that thing, but you can't because it conflicts with your long-term plan and what you want the most of the time. So I honestly, the biggest thing is just letting all athletes know, regardless of level, because especially sometimes the super high level guys, when they're like, man, I've been slumping for 6 months, like they feel like there's something really wrong with them, and letting people know that no, that thing it's up and down all the time. It really is. Like I wouldn't say I'm motivated all the time, but it's that long-term goal that that keeps me in the game. So just bring it up to athletes like, hey, you're normal. Everyone feels like that, and if they tell you they don't, that they're lying to you.
Yeah, 100%. Everyone gets unmotivated sometimes, and like you said, athletes do as well. You'll have peaks where people will have amazing results, and then a period where they might just be staying the same. Yeah. Like it's always going to have, but you said like the long-term goal. As long as we're looking forward to that, that's what we've got to look forward to. So,
I've had streaks where I've been killing it at the gym, but I just don't care.
Yeah.
So it's funny how that works. It just happens, and you just gotta endure it.
Yeah, for sure. Cool. So let's talk about a little bit about the client itself and the programming for them. First of all, I want to ask, like, do you have any different approaches for more of a general population client over a contest prep client? Like, is there anything different that you would do specifically for those?
It's crazy because when I guess you just how stuff works. Basically it's just like the same rules apply to everyone, and you just turn up the volume dials to whatever the client needs.
Yeah.
And to me, that's why sometimes I'll hear coaches who work with more of a general population. I will hear what they say, and I'm like, man, you're so mistaken and off. But that's just because I understand the big picture. So I feel like anything below contest prep, I can do. or anything below like advanced levels of strength or advanced levels of muscle gain. Because when you think about it, everyone that goes to the gym, like that's basically what they want. It's like whatever a bodybuilder is getting, say, out of a contest prep, is like they want that, but they don't want to go to the highest floor. They, the 10th floor is okay or something like that in this like majestic skyscraper of effort. So no, I'd say learn how stuff works, because if you know how stuff works, you will be able to work with almost anyone, regardless of their goal, especially when it comes to the body recomp stuff. Because like, what does a bodybuilder do? Like compared to, say, my mother, is it like my mom wants to gain muscle too? Is just we're kind of capping it here. And then in regards to fat loss, yes, she wants to lose fat, but it's only up until this point. But it's all the same rules. It's like the exact same rules, and it's just you just decide how far you want to take it. So, yeah, know how stuff works. If you know how stuff works, you're going to be able to work with just about anything. And even if, especially early on, you might get some tasks that you're like, man, this slightly exceeds what are my current capabilities. But if you know how stuff works, you will be able to adapt and still do some good work.
Yeah, so just basically the general kind of thing is adapting for each person and knowing how to do it, so it doesn't get to that point where you're unsure as such.
Yeah, it's within the same principles, the exact same principles. If you look at Eric's muscle and strength pyramids, it's like, guess what? Those apply to everyone.
Everybody. Yeah, for sure. Cool. So when it comes to this question was asked in our Facebook group earlier from someone who's obviously specifically wanting to know, how do you tackle programming for each client? So is it something which you'll spend hours and hours and hours doing, or is it simple kind of updates when they get to their kind of end of their mesocycle? Kind of like just talk a little bit about that, because we have a few people like obviously listening to the show and new coaches that have come on board that are coaching more intermediate and advanced athletes. So it'd be interesting to know kind of like how you do tend to tackle your programming for each client.
So I'm guessing they want to know, how do I create from scratch?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, man, that's hard, because you start from nothing with everyone.
Yeah.
You start from nothing. I'd say that probably the not the newest skill, but probably the one that took the longest to really learn to put together, because I want people to leave with something here that they can actually run with. Sometimes when you know how stuff works, you know enough, you want to throw everything in one program. I think that's a huge mistake. It's like all these things that I know can contribute to our cause, I just want to throw them all in, and you can't do that. Like that's one of the first rules is you have a situation, you know what you want to do with it, but like it's like, hold up, like we eventually can go through everything, but right now, like you can't do that. It's going to be a weird and overwhelming like training block. So that's the first thing. It's like, you know all this, but you don't have to use everything at once. So there's that one. And then now that you know how stuff works, you have all the stuff that is going to drive the changes this person is looking for in place. The next thing would be, how do I keep them engaged? Because it takes a while before an athlete's like, you know what, like that old saying that bodybuilders, like you hear them frequently say often, is like, I'll eat dog poop if that's what it takes, right? It takes a while for a person to get to that point, where progress is so hard to come by that, like, legitimately, whatever it is, they find the most fun and engagement when they're progressing. But it takes a while for most folks to get there. And intermediates, for example, they can get there in a number of different ways, and they're going to be taking steps forwards almost regardless. So with those people, you want to do all the things that you feel are optimal, but at the same time, you want to be able to include things in there that they just find fun and engaging. So that is an art. Is like, okay, something that makes sense, but guess what? This person enjoys as well.
For sure. No, that makes a lot of sense, because I think as coaches, we can tend to get overwhelmed by all of the new studies coming in, all of the new special techniques, and you want to put it all in a program, when, like you said, just kind of giving a little bit of something and making sure that it's still fun is probably the best way to tackle your programming. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, because I've been guilty of all those, like, hey, this is what works, or this is what we're going to do, never mind your fun, or I've just learned all these things. Here we go. Like, this creature has like wings and horns and, like webbed feet. Yeah.
No, it's every set is a giant set with a superset. You're getting everything. Yeah. Awesome, cool. So, let's talk about, do you have any kind of non-negotiables when a client comes on board that they have to have in place to be able to work with you? And would you say that coaches should have these things in place as well when it comes to taking new people on?
I like to have a certain level of athlete buy-in, for sure. Because I get this all the time. Like, I will get a direct message from someone and they're asking me about what their coach is doing with them, and I'm like, so why did you invest in this if you are questioning everything? It's like I hope that before someone gets to me, they've done their research and they're like, okay, I trust this person with my situation, so that I can kind of, to a certain extent, just get out of their way and let them work. So that's a huge one. Is like, I want my athletes to have been well researched when it comes to why they're hiring me. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Secondly, we have to be on board with the principles that make things move. So I will make them go through the muscle and strength pyramids. It's before the first month is over, you need to go through all this, because you have some unlearning and learning to do, most likely. So those are the two main things. I want them to know exactly why they're hiring me, and I want to have their full trust until proven otherwise. And I hope that's not the case. And then let's get on the same page on why we're doing what we're doing, because you'll be able to put in more effort into a program that, as you look at it, you're able to scan and see all these principles that we went over, and you're like, okay, I know why that's there, and I know why I must work hard or only work this hard. So those are the two main things. Yeah,
no, I think that's a good two things to have in place for sure. Is I think definitely as well with the learning element, I really like that, because they're obviously going to come away from the coaching service, if they do, with the knowledge to be able to then go and do whatever they need to do for themselves in the long run. And I'm guessing for you as a coach, that's probably very very nice to see if someone has made progress after they've stopped coaching with you. I'm guessing that's something that you really like to see.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. But then sometimes there's also those cases where it's like, I thought I taught this person well, and because one of the things that as I'm coaching someone is I want them to not be duped, because that's the one thing about the fitness industry, man. Well, they'll get people, and sometimes I'm like, man, they gotcha, So I'm trying to avoid and have as few of those moments where I'm like, man, my dude is, I don't know, he's controlling his concentrics. Why is he doing things like that.
Cool. So obviously with 2017, 2018, Instagram, online coaching, it's sort of kind of, it's erupted really. Looking in, how do you separate yourself now as a coach on social media through your content? What are you doing differently that perhaps other coaches aren't when it comes to that?
Man, there's different levels of that. I guess to start, you got to know your stuff. There's no way around that. There's been a lot of online coaching certifications that have been going around. Some really good. Some I feel focused too much on the marketing aspect and not enough on the nuts and bolts of getting people actual results. Because okay, let's just say you took something where you know how to plaster your name on all the billboards, but you're not very good at your job. That's not going to last very long. You might fish in a few people, but eventually people will. You won't get your people the results they wanted, right? So Yes, you have to know your stuff, and there's a few certifications that I feel do that. JPS has one, Shredded by Science has one, and those are fantastic in regards to like broadening the trainer's toolbox. Let's just say you got that all in place, you have your fundamentals down, and then some. I think the next thing is going to be, learning to differentiate yourself from other people via honestly just being yourself, like being relatable to your people. I think that is huge.
Yeah.
And I think deep inside people can kind of tell when it's kind of a facade and it's not really you, and it's just something that you do to, look extra hardcore or look extra holistic or whatever it might be. So be yourself. I think that's or take parts of yourself that showcasing them will make you more relatable to people, because you could try to be someone else, but you're gonna suck at that relative to just being who you are. So we got that bit, and then I'd say the next thing is there's like 2 levels of dispensing information. I think one, you are, I don't want to use the word regurgitating, but it's stuff that's already out there, and you're just making it more clear and comprehensive for other folks. And I think that is a good place to start. That is a great place to start, where it's like, okay, Eric Helm said this, Mike Israetel said this, but you know what, let me put it together in a way where I think more people can benefit from this great information. So you have that, and then I think the next level, and this is where eventually you want to get to, is where you can just like create, like you are the person that, oh my God, like this is a brand new concept. That is when you get to that point, that is when I think you've really made it. But before you get to that point, you have to be, I guess, the regurgitator of sorts, because as you're doing that, as you're taking something that Brian Miner said, and you are going to redistribute that information. As you're going through it, you should be critically thinking as you read that, and looking for gaps and looking for ways that we can do this a bit better, or may really make this concept come to life. And that's how you eventually start to create new things that no one's ever heard of before. I guess in that order, know your nuts and bolts, like be yourself, and then finally, learn to distribute content and be clear and comprehensive with it, and then eventually just learn to create your own stuff from scratch.
Yeah, no, that's you couldn't have put that perfectly better. That's brilliant. That's awesome. So what advice would you give to someone perhaps that might be looking to start online training? So for example, they're now PTing in a gym. They want to step away from doing so many sessions and they want to start online training. Like, what piece of advice would you give to someone looking to do that?
Yeah, I'd say just start small. Trying to think here. Yeah, start small. You know what? I would even go as far as saying, since it is different from training someone in person, that pro bono work is not a bad thing. Both parties win. You help someone out, and they're going to help you out by being the guinea pig, right? So I think some pro bono work early on is probably not a bad idea. Yeah. And only taking on situations that you feel comfortable with. Yeah, every once in a while you should take on something that you're like, this kind of exceeds my current capabilities, but not by that much. I think I can figure this out as I go. But yeah, some pro bono work is like, I did quite a bit of that early on. A lot of that early on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just like helping kind of friends and people that just wanted to maybe just put on a bit of muscle, and just kind of getting some testimonials together and showing that you could do what you wanted to do before you obviously started taking people on and charging them for it.
Yeah, my first full contest prep athlete, because I was like, man, that's different. Now I'm working with a deadline, and it's a deadline, and I'm trying to emaciate this person, like get them to the point where they have no body fat. Like, I don't feel super confident about this, but I'm like, you know what, but this kid's going to go the wrong direction without me. So I know I can do at least better than that. So I just told him, hey, let's do this. It'll be free. Yeah. And you just got to say that I helped you.
Yeah. When you post up your picture, remember to tag.
Yeah, that was way back in 2008.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was your first contest prep athlete, was it?
That was my first, prep athlete. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, he actually won WNBF Worlds recently. So.
Oh really? Who was that?
Yeah. Brett Freeman.
Oh, okay, cool. That's awesome.
Yeah.
It's so funny. Like, it goes back that sort of far, and that he's won the Worlds recently as well. That's amazing. Cool. Yeah. So if you were to start coaching now in 2018, what would you do to kind of obviously get your foot in the door? Because obviously right now there's many coaches that are starting to look to come into this world, which potentially from the outside looking in can look saturated with so many people trying to do it. So what would you do now to really kind of get your foot in the door and get going with it?
Yeah, that's something that I still feel I take for granted, because man, I got it good when it comes to that right now. Like, we've had 3-year waiting list at some point.
Wow.
Yeah, and even now it's like we don't even announce that we have spots often. We just put it up on the website, and if someone happens to check, it's there. Like, that's where it's at.
Yeah.
But that was earned. That was definitely earned, like 100%. To get to that point. Yeah. But it wasn't always that way. Oh my God, it was not that way. I think so our first efficient method was we were a site that just dispensed information. Like, that's all we were. And then eventually we're like, okay, so we want to take this and we want to actually like coach. That was the next step. We were reporting bodybuilding shows and dispensing information. That's what we were doing. So what we did is we had the sponsored athlete contest. And I remember, I remember putting that out there. We got something like 70 applications over the course of 2 months. And we took them as leads, basically. That's how they were. So after we picked our athletes, we gave everyone like, okay, so for applying, you have this discounted rate. I think we maybe signed up 10 out of all of those at the end. I guess what I'm hinting at is like, hey, it kind of works back to like that what I went over in regards to like what you can do to make yourself stand out. Is like, we started out as an information website. So give yourself some value, like put some stuff out there. I think that is huge. I love it because the way this economy kind of works is that the more you give is the more you get. And I love it whenever we are putting out stuff now and people are like, wow, I can't believe this is free. I'm like, okay, that's exactly where you want to be. That's exactly where you want to be. So yeah, you want to put out as much good content as possible. And again, like initially it might be stuff that, it's someone else's stuff, but you're not plagiarizing, but you're taking these concepts that you learned from Brad Schoenfeld, that you learned from Eric Helms, and you're reformulating them so that they, make more sense to maybe your exact demographic. Or just taking the time to engage with people when it comes to these concepts. Sometimes these folks don't have the ability to. So yeah, giving yourself some value, I think, is super, super important. Giving to the point where you're like, man, I feel like this is too much and I don't really have any more to give. I think that's a wonderful place to start. And kind of like we did, we started with free. Like that contest, that sponsored athlete thing was pro bono work.
Yeah.
So do some free work. Put out as much content as you can, and you do that long enough, there'll be some frustrating points, but eventually it will get to the point where you'll have a good rotation of athletes. So that would be, no one really does that. Usually people start off the other way, or every once in a while you'll get a lucky person that, maybe they pick the right parents, right? So they look the part and then they just get folks, but those people don't last.
No.
They don't last. So yeah. Give stuff away for free, and then people are going to want to, give you their money in time.
Yeah, that's it. You give people your best free information, and people then want to pay for what you're really going to get, which is the coaching from you. So yeah, that's kind of like one of the big things we do kind of preach here at the online fitness business, is giving away your best content, not being afraid to do it, because people will naturally then warm towards you as a coach.
Yeah. I mean, there's a few worlds outside of this that I kind of frequent where I'm like a total noob, and who I end up investing in, like even without knowing, are the people I'm like, wow,
Yeah.
this has been very helpful. This has been very useful. I think I want to take this person's online seminar.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, you when you think about it now, when you like watch adverts or like you say, listen to someone, if they've put out something in the past and you've really related to it, you tend to buy from them again in the future because they're the go-to person. And if you're a new coach who is starting out, be that go-to person. So
Yeah,
simple way to put it.
Yeah. And there's so many ways to give now. That's the best. There's so many ways to give. When I first started, there wasn't many ways to give information out. So
yeah, awesome, cool. So obviously I don't want to keep you for too long, so just to kind of wrap up, like where is the best kind of place to obviously find more about yourself and Team 3D Muscle Journey? So obviously it's probably the websites, but where's the best place?
yeah, so 3dmusclejourney.com, that's our website. We have through there you can find our blog, our podcast. We have our 3D Muscle Journey Vault, which is a combination of free and not free courses. That is slowly going to build up over time.
Yeah. Is there any courses in there about growing online coaching at all, or is it just specifically more around training and nutrition?
No, but that might be something we get into. I'm not a business person per se, but like you've been here long enough, you just start to see trends and stuff. Because I can always tell like when someone's doing something wrong, like from the outside, like oh my god, poor bloke, right? So yeah, that might be a good idea. I'm actually gonna bring that up. We're actually meeting up next month in Austin, just like our yearly powwow. I'm like, hey, you know what? What's something that we can actually speak on, and I think it would help people, both consumers and producers. So yeah, 3dmusclejourney.com. I tend to be the most active on Instagram.
Yeah.
That's where I will every once in a while when I'm in the mood, I'll go through just like way too many slides on the story. And yeah, our YouTube channel as well. Our YouTube channel has got some pretty good stuff, both new and old. But namely the website. If you go through our website, you'll be able to find all the latest things that we do there. Like for example, this podcast will be on that website, and best way to keep up with all the things that we are doing.
Awesome, cool. So what we'll also do for any listeners listening, all of the Team 3D Muscle Journey notes will be in the podcast notes as well. So if you do want to go and check out any of the stuff, or specifically go and see Alberto's Instagram page, then that will be there as well. So yeah, appreciate you coming on massively. The trainers are going to be able to learn a lot from that podcast. I certainly learned a lot, especially kind of the more advanced intermediate people I take on. I'm learning a lot more from advanced coaches, so it really does help me in that field as well. So really do appreciate you coming on.
Hey, thank you for having me, dude. We rocked it, man. I think people will get a lot from this one.
Yeah, definitely, for sure. So thank you again for coming on. And that concludes episode 15 of the Online Trainer Show. So we will put this one up very, very soon. And we will see you in the next podcast. Cheers, guys.